welcome. And this is Women at the Front Lines. My name is Monica Moding. And on this space, we aspire to bring you women who have walked their journey of leadership and have impacted society in various ways. And of course, the question that we put to them is, how have they been able to make it to the top? And for us who are watching, how can we learn, or how can we as well get to the same point or walk the same journeys and get to the top as they have done? And today, I am hosting a pioneer woman in politics in Uganda, and she's going to share her story on how she walked that journey and where she is now. She has since retired into the agricultural sector, where she's mobilizing farmers across the country in that very important sector. So she has a lot to share with us in terms of the journey of a politician, a political leader in Uganda, and also in other sectors that she is in. Join me in welcoming Honourable Victoria Sekitoleko.
Thank you, Monica.
Honourable, when I was growing up, the name Victoria Sekitoleko was all over the place. It was Victoria Sekitoleko, and then the likes of Namirembe Bitamazire and Maria Mutagamba and many other great women of that time. I am so delighted now to be sharing a space with you. We meet in so many spaces. You're still strong and kicking. It is a blessing.
A pleasure.
It is a pleasure.
Yeah.
And of course, in my mind, when I got that confirmation to have you here today, I was like, what has she been up to? Where is she? And what is she doing right now? So you're welcome, Honourable.
Thank you, Monica. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
And if you want to know where I am and what I'm doing, I'm right here in Uganda. And I've told everybody that I spent 17 years of my life working outside Uganda.
Wow.
I intend to spend the rest of my life working for and in Uganda.
Here in Uganda. Yep. Wow. Wow.
I'm one of those people who doesn't get very excited because I've been invited and there is a ticket. Nah. Because most of those people will invite, they normally come here, take the best. You do their work there when your work here is undone. So that is why sometimes when I look at people who are aspiring, for example, to join politics, and I ask, but exactly what do you want to do? And they say, I want to help my people. And I'm like, but your people are not in parliament.
They are outside parliament.
Exactly.
Yes.
What is in parliament that you need in order to be able to help your people? Because for me, I believe in uplifting one household at a time.
At a time.
So for that one, why do I need parliament? So that is why when I retired and I said, I'm going to continue from where I left off, I didn't have to add parliament to what I had left. I am only interested in the community.
So, Honourable Victoria, you have had a very illustrious career, not just in politics. You have served as a member of parliament, you've served as a minister in the Republic of Uganda here. You then also went out and worked with some illustrious organizations, World Bank, I think.
No. It was the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Yes.
And of course, now you are doing quite a lot in the agricultural sector, using that knowledge and also your expertise in there. So we are interested in tracing that journey as women leaders. How have you been, how did that journey start? Where did it start? What have you been, what did you impact on in society in terms of your contribution? So for the person watching out there, someone is asking now, how did she start? How did she start? And how did, her journey, contribute to transformation?
In life, to some people, life happens. To others, they get guidance. I, for one, am lucky to have had a father who was a policeman.
Wow.
And a mother who was a teacher. So, between the two, we, their children, were guided throughout.
Through life.
I remember when I was in primary school, very early, we would go home. Our father used to have a tree. There was a tree outside our house, but the tree was directly opposite the road. So as you turn off the main road to come to our house, our father would be seated there under the tree. waiting to see your homework.
Wow.
So there is no dodging. You get there, my books.
Where is your work?
So then, of course, he would ask, why are you dirty? Why didn't you do this and the other? What are you doing tomorrow?
Was he educated himself?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And during those days, the police has always taken educated people. And actually, when he went for his interview to join the police, he won basically because he could speak English. So at that time, he had gone up to P4. And when they called for people to join the police, he went, was interviewed, and got top marks and joined the police. So anyway, my father was a policeman, and we had order in our house at all times. Part of which was to do your part in the household. So if your part was to go to school, study, do your homework, our father made sure he did it. If it was your turn to do the washing up or whatever, our mother.
Okay.
I mean, there was no discussion there. Yeah. So growing up, I was more or less modeled, guided, and managed by my parents. During those days, certain things would not be explained very well. You know that that type of parents, you do it because I say so. But eventually, when you grow up and you look back, you see what she was trying to say. Yes. But she did not want to use so many words. Because, for example, we had neighbors, like I've said, our home is right next to the road. We had neighbors across the road. But it was not until I became Member of Parliament that I actually visited one of the homesteads. Who were just not allowed to cross that road and go visiting.
Anyhow, without permission.
Because I remember that one of the neighbors was Muslim, and he lost his wife. So I think that the wife died in the morning, and with Muslims,
they bury the same day.
So by the time we came back, she had been buried. So we asked our mother what we should do, and said nothing. But first of all, they are Muslims. She's already buried, and she's the only one you knew. You have never known the husband. So if the husband comes here, you can tell him you are sorry. That is how bad it was. But now that I'm older and I have seen what I have seen, I honestly wish we still had that kind of order in society. Yeah.
I want to believe that the role of a father in women or girls is very, very important. For every woman I've hosted and engaged who is a great woman walking a great life and a journey, you will always stress somewhere the role that the father. I think we should write a book, Honourable Victoria, in terms of men's contribution to women's empowerment and emancipation. Every girl child has a father figure who becomes a great woman. So, yeah.
For one, I'm already writing my book, and my father figures in there very, very highly.
Yes.
And I agree. The role of a father can never and should never be substituted. If a father can be in the life of their children, by all means, let him be there. Because they need this person as they are growing up. It is not something you can make up for when you are 20 and you finally meet your father and you're like, oh, my father.
My dad.
No. By then the ink is cast and dry. Yeah.
So you had guidance from
Now I had a loving father who wanted the best for me. But of course, that best was very, very expensive.
Of course.
Because the first thing that happened is one day I'm in primary 2, aged about 7, 8. And I'm told by the school that the following day I should go to school with some reeds, a molly. So I get back, my father seated in his usual place, asks me, and I tell him, yeah, tomorrow we are supposed to take reeds. And she says, what language was she speaking? Did he really say emoli? And I said, yes. And at your age, you are supposed to go to the bush and cut those emoli and carry 10 of them to the school. You are going to tell them that you are not going to take the reeds. So I did not take the reeds. And of course, the teacher was like, why didn't you bring the reeds? And I told them, I'm too small to go to the bush. I couldn't have carried them. I'll bring other things like fibers or whatever, but anything to do with the forest, no. They were not amused. Then they told me to tell my father to go to school. So my father told them that this is a conversation we should have had before. But now that we have reached this stage, my daughter is not going to bring reeds, is not going to bring firewood. And whatever she does, never, ever administer capital punishment onto my daughter.
Wow.
If any such situation arises, call me, then we can talk. Of course, the headmaster was not terribly amused. So at the end of the year, there were 3 of us in the same school, were thrown out of the school.
Just because of that?
Yeah, because you know that report has, the school report used to have a space where they say next year, and just take them to another school, take them to another school. So my father, being a policeman, he went to court.
He went to court.
But even then, the courts were slow, because that case was not finalized until August, by which time he had taken us to other schools. But the reason I was telling you about being thrown out of school, that started my journey with my father not being satisfied with the schools. So, because I've been thrown out of Bugaya Primary School, which is in Busede, Jinja district, my father takes me to Walanga Primary School in Mbale. I get there, and what language do they, what is the language of instruction? Lumasawa.
Wow.
So I had to learn to live with the new family. I had to learn to speak the language, and then learn what I had gone to learn. So needless to say, at the end of the year, I had performed so. So my father is like, no, we are moving on. So he moved me from that district back to Bujiri district.
Wow.
Staying with my grandparents. Unfortunately, that particular, by then I was going into P4. Unfortunately, that particular school, Setaka Primary School, which is still there, had only 4 classes. So P4, I had run out of classes. So my father had to think again. And this time he decided I wanted the best in the region, which I can afford. So he took me to Walkuva Estate School. Walkuva Estate School is in Jinja. Language of instruction, purely English.
Wow.
Lumasawa, Lusoga, then deep end of English. But you know what he said when I told him this is a bit complicated? He said, no, you manage.
Manage, yeah.
If you learn to register in 1 year, this English, and you have got 2 years before you do your P6, you manage. Ha! I managed. And I did very well. And he was very happy. As a result, because he knew what he wanted, most, like I said, some people let life happen to them. Others have guided life. My father knew that the best school in our region at that time was Iganga Girls Junior Secondary School. And he told me that is where I was going to put my choice, and that is where I was going. And that is what happened.
That's what happened.
So I get there, and my father, having been a policeman trained at Insambia Police Training Center, he knew about national schools. He knew about Gayaza. There is no way I would have known about Gayaza High School. So my father kept saying, I need to have a daughter in Gayaza, and you are my Gayaza girl. Lo and behold, I passed very well and landed in Gayaza. Wow. But most of, like you can see, most of that is my father's dreams.
Instruction and guidance.
And dreams. So for me, my father and fathers in people's lives, in fact, if I can just complete this story of the father, eventually when I decided to join politics, my father, who had been a UPC supporter throughout his life, so much so that even when NRM came, my father never wavered. He died a UPC guy. When I told him in 1980 that I was going to support DP, he said, Victoria, you are an adult. That's up to you. You want to go to DP? I'm all for you. So I support DP, and of course we don't win. And quietly, softly, gently, he says, Victoria, DP can never win. I told him, whatever happens, I can never join UPC. And of course, one time he asked to know why I didn't want to join UPC, but that is another story. So when I finally joined politics and elective politics, he was my campaign manager. Was my campaign manager. He was the chief of intelligence. He was the PR for my constituency. And lo and behold, because of the work he did, first time I was voted unopposed. Second time, some people lost their time and whatever. I got like 85% of the votes. And when he said, that was the 1994, when we were going for CA, that is when money was introduced in our politics. My father said, Victoria, I don't like where this politics is going. I'm not going to bribe anybody. And if that is the case, you are on your own.
Tell me, did you contest in a general seat at that time?
Oh, yes.
Of course.
Yes, I was MP Utembe. I was not MP for women.
Not for women.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my father was managing. So when my father noticed that money was coming in, and he told me what he did, and I had also noticed, we both agreed to call it a day.
Just like that.
Just like that.
There is something I'm learning from you about principles, but I think we'll deal with it later on. There is a series of your life where the principle matter,
Yes.
takes the day.
Exactly.
And I think that's where you have started. So, well, but why politics at that time? Why politics?
During because for me, I graduated during the Amin era. So it's quite complicated.
It was complicated.
I remember at my graduation.
Because you could have gone to any other sector,
Yeah.
You are passionate in, agriculture and others, but you chose politics.
No, after I graduated from Makerere during the Amin era, at that time we were actually practically conscripted to go and work for government.
Okay.
If the government has paid for you to go to university, you graduate, you have to work with the government. But I didn't want a job with the public service.
Okay.
So I was told if I don't agree to that job, I will be. Let me see. I will not get my results from the university. So I asked the dean, Mr. Okot, that time, what I told him, I don't want a job with public service. He said, okay, let us make a deal. You sign the papers, give them to me because that is my job. I'm not here to manage your life. Then I'll give you your results. What you do after that is up to you.
It's your business.
So he gave me the forms, I filled them. But when I gave him the form, he gave me a piece of paper and said, if you don't want to work with public service, go and work in the bank. Just like that. I didn't ask, I didn't know even he had it. So this Mr. Court, Professor Court, gave me this note. I went to the bank, and honestly, when I gave this to the general manager, he didn't ask me anything. I was never interviewed for the job. He just stood up and took me and showed me my office and my secretary.
Then the opportunities were immense, and the educated were few.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got a job as agriculture banking officer.
Wow.
So for me, it has always been agriculture.
Always been agriculture.
Which job I did for 13 years.
Wow.
But in my view, from what my father taught me, whenever, like now, you should be preparing for your afternoon and your night. You don't exactly. So when I was working with the bank, I had already started thinking what happens after. So even this politics, when I was telling my father I want to be DP and whatever, I was still working with the bank. But I always had a side dish, which was politics. But my politics was not just empty politics. I was always doing development. Because I remember I spent like 5 years working with the community. There's a place called Wala in Mayuge. I would do every Saturday, I would travel there and we would work with them. We built a health center. We worked on their gardens. Wow. We improved nutrition. So the way I live my life is always think, okay, today I'm here. Where shall I be tomorrow? What should I do in order to get there? So the reason I was working with the community is to prepare for my politics, which is management of society. Because especially if you are working in a bank, the banks just bring the middle people. They don't bring the Montua Wansi. So, but if you work with the community, that is when you really confront
the real issues.
Exactly.
The real challenges.
Exactly. So I had started working with those people down there, visiting them regularly, listening to them, understanding what works and what doesn't work. So eventually, when Amin was overthrown and Obote came in, and I was still doing my planning, that is when quite a number of people, for convenience, crossed into UPC. I told everybody that they are free to do what they want, but as far as I'm concerned, I've put my politics on hold. So somebody asks, what does that mean? I'm like, I'm going into development. Wow. That is when we started an organization called the Friendly Hands, which was doing the development in Mayuge. And that is because I was Secretary General of the Friendly Hands. I was voted to be the national chairperson for the non-government organizations of women of Uganda.
Ah,
yes.
That's a big one as well.
Yes. So as such, I was invited to Washington for the preparatory meetings for the Nairobi World Women Conference.
Oh, the World Women Beijing? No, before the Beijing.
Nairobi.
Yes.
That was
Nairobi,
1985. And you know, sometimes life can be so good that you don't know how to tell the story. Because I remember that was the first time I was going to the US. And I remember, even if it was the first time, because I was sponsored by World Bank, I don't know why, I flew first class.
Wow.
And I'm like, I would love to have more of that.
More of this. It feels good. Yes.
So I attended the preparatory meetings for the World Women Conference in Nairobi. I actually led the delegation of the non-government organizations of women of Uganda to this conference.
To the World Conference.
And the government delegation was led by the president's wife. I don't know whether that was official or unofficial, but it was led by Madam Miri Obote. And that is, you know, when you are among these women and you are reading stuff, you are attending such meetings, you start getting ideas that while I may be happy working in the bank, getting this money, I'm married and I have children, there is more
that I can do for society.
So for me, that sort of led me to decide that I will do whatever it takes to join politics, management of my country at some stage.
At some stage. Yeah. At some stage. So that stage comes in 1995.
1986.
1986 first. Yeah. CA.
No, 1986. When when NRM captured power, there was the NRC, which is National Research Council, which was the equivalent of Parliament.
Yes.
I was nominated by the president to join the NRC and to become Deputy Minister of Agriculture.
Right away.
Right away.
So you came into things, as the Ugandans would say.
Really, I was young.
Yes.
I was, oh my God. I was really frightened.
Yes, yes.
I remember telling the president when he told me, don't tell anybody until I tell my husband. Because until my husband says yes, I'm not available.
I'm not available.
So I got home, told my husband, and my husband said, you see, I'm in Uganda. In Uganda, when the Kabaka gives you chiefdom, you cannot decline.
Say no. Yeah.
So take it. And I told him, the reason I'm talking to you is that, one, I'm your wife. Two, there is no way I'm going to do this without you. Said, I'll go with you all the way. Said, done. So I called the president, said, okay, I'll take that job.
I'll take the job. Deputy Minister
of Agriculture. So one day, the radios announced in the evening, half the village was at my father's place to tell him about the appointment. Like he had no radio himself.
Wow.
So the whole constituency was really excited. People were coming in. And so briefly, that was my journey into politics. But it was via banking. In which banking, most of my work was agribusiness.
Wow. That's a very interesting history. Now, did you ever go back to contest for elective, or was after that what happened?
After being, okay, that was 1986. 1988, I was elevated to full minister.
Okay.
My colleague, late honourable Robert Sekitoleko, was given another ministry because he was the senior minister. I became the full minister. And then elections began. During those days, the campaigns were so lovely because you didn't have to do anything. It was the job of the RDC to organize the whole village. Then whoever wants to contest, you go and speak to them.
Wow.
And you didn't need to belong to a party. It was individual merit.
Individual merit.
So, like I said, first time I was voted unopposed. Yes. So I did not have the joy of talking. Second time, because I competed 3 times. Because I competed for the constituency as MP, that was 1990 something. Then I competed for CA. Now, when we competed for MP and CA, that was the arrangement. where the RDC organized the voters.
Yes.
So you go there and you talk. Now, what was interesting is I was MP for Butembe and Kakira Sugar Works, which covers the whole sub-county of Kakira with 30,000 people.
Workers. Yeah.
Has got a sure deal of 7,000 voters. Why 7,000? Because quite a number of those people don't want to vote. So we get there, because most of Kakira is the United States of Uganda.
You get there,
indeed. Yes, most of those people don't speak English.
Yeah.
In fact, they live in camps. There is a camp for Bajisu, Bagwe, Samia, and so on and so forth. But now and then they can come together if the politicians want to talk to them. We have to speak Swahili.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was the job of the RDC to organize a translator. I remember the last campaign, there were 7 of us.
In that race?
Yes, and we had one translator. Honestly, translation is a very boring, tiring thing.
Yes.
So having to translate for 7 people.
7 candidates.
But lucky me, I could speak Swahili.
You had learned it?
My father.
He was a policeman, of course. So a little bit here and there.
He knew the constituency. So he said, here, Otango ya Kiswahili peke yake.
Peke yake tu.
So I get there, and these people are already tired. I get onto the stage, and I'm speaking Swahili. And they're like, we have finished. We have finished. The election is done. And the women in Kakira are so powerful, I don't know. Because when I got there, the women had already told me, Victoria, we like you. We are going to tell these men to vote you. Most of these men don't even have time to know who is who. So they do what we tell them. So when I tell you I got 85%, 85%. I know where it came from.
Wow. Yours was a smooth journey in politics. The first appointment, then the election unopposed, and then another. I think it was a beautiful story. But also, of course, you got the opportunity to serve the country as a minister.
Yeah.
I would want to know some of your proud moments during that time. What do you recall? What do you remember in terms of your, proud moments as minister?
I'll give you only two examples. The first one, I told you I was a banker for 13 years, doing agriculture banking. So I became minister, deputy minister, and I see certain things which we could do immediately and change people's lives, like from
low-hanging fruits.
Yeah. And I tell my senior minister, and he's like, okay, if you can document it for me, I have no problem. I'll push it. I said, fine. So one of the things I wanted to do was a heifer project, where you give a woman a heifer, she looks after it. Once it delivers, she passes on the heifer
to the next person.
So my senior minister said, but Victoria, we are minister for agriculture and forestry. There is a minister for livestock. And I told him, no, most of those are veterinarians. They look after sick cows. For us, we are in production. Yeah. We are going to produce the chicken and everything, but somebody else will look after them when they are sick.
They are not okay.
Yeah. So I called the chief planning officer of the ministry, who was a woman. And who had gone to the same school as I had, and who had studied agriculture. Now, when I call her, she takes the opportunity to remind me the same thing which the minister had said. And I'm like, you know what? Your job is to write this project. Let me sort that out with other people. So, 1 week, 2 weeks, and nothing had been done. But then I heard from, because I was going to put this application to UNFPA, United Nations Fund for Population Activities. And I had talked to the resident representative, and he had told me that his boss was coming, and she would like to do something for the women. When I became deputy minister, the whole world was really excited that finally there was a woman there. So this particular...
Were you the first minister to occupy that office as a woman? Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Or the first woman at that time?
To occupy that office.
Okay.
So this lady had heard about me, because I'm sure the resident representative had reported, and she was excited. So she asked him what she can do for me, and that is what I wanted her to fund. So here is money, sure deal, and here is this officer wasting my time. Yours truly sat down, and I wrote this project myself. And because by the time I confirmed she was not going to do it, it was like 2 days left. So in 2 days, my project was ready with everything, the proposal, the objective, and when she came, I told her the truth and gave her this project handwritten.
Wow.
She got out her pen and approved it in my office.
Handwritten?
Yep. Gave it to the res rep and said, you are going to get 110 cows for this woman. And we got them.
Wow, wow, wow.
So for me,
using your office for
exactly,
change, to impact lives, really.
But even being firm in my knowledge, because like I said, I wrote the project myself.
Yourself.
If I had been the type of minister who says, oh, you see, they are technical people, that would have been, where you end up being very annoyed, very angry with the technical
and
people.
Discouraged.
Yeah, from that time, the ministry knew that this minister is not a joke.
I can tell you were a very popular minister in terms of your work and, the impact. You've talked about one. What is the other?
The second one was agriculture competitions. When I became full minister, I had a deputy minister called Honourable Sabiti. And Jack Sabit was my deputy. And he was very enthusiastic about agriculture competitions. So we sat and agreed that we are going to start whether we have money or not. This time there were no breaks, Vijinji, where you want to start the lorry and somebody is putting the stones and whatever. No. Both of us were at par. It was the PS who said, you do not have power to move any money from any fort to another one. So this is a big program. How are you going to do it? And I told the PS at that time, mind your own business. I'm not going to touch any of your money. I'm not going to violate any rules. Because being a banker, in the bank, even if you are just a mere cashier, I, as MD, cannot come to you and say, give me some cash. Oh, yes. No, everything has to be written. So I told him, for me, everything is going to be above board. So we sat, we talked, we agreed, and I started fundraising. Because I had just left the private sector, I had quite a number of friends there. And because of the excitement, because by then I was full minister, woman minister, agriculture, even when I went out to be abroad, I could see the excitement about this woman. So I took full advantage, and that is one thing I want to tell women to do. Whenever you go anywhere and people are excited about you being there, hey, Funamu, get something out of it. Don't just sit there and enjoy.
And enjoy the office.
So I went fundraising.
Wow.
And I got such a positive response that until today, I wonder how it happened.
Wow.
Because when somebody gives you a tractor for free.
Free of charge?
Yes.
Wow.
I got tractors, I got motorbikes, I got trips to the United States, UK, Denmark, Egypt, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Uganda.
Ooh.
Everything funded outside the budget.
That was goodwill.
And that went on for a cool 4 years.
4 years.
So it had become like the landmark when we, the farmers, celebrate. And I remember 1992, we celebrated it at Kololo during the 26th of January celebrations of NRM. We merged it with agriculture. Oh my God, the farmers were so happy. Kololo was so full. There was so much happiness. I can't believe it.
I think that still happens today.
I don't know. But anyway, after I left, new ministers come and they ask for the 2 files. The one for the heifer project and the one for agriculture competitions. And they are not anywhere in the budget.
Policy document
in the
of
budget.
The ministry as well.
Yeah, but no, there was the files were there and everything was written.
But the budget.
But there was no budget code. So they're like, how can you run a program without budget code? So the joke was, did she go with the code?
Yeah. That was a challenge for the new one.
So for me, those two examples made me laugh.
Wow. I think that was, you just went and occupied that space, but also made some, tangible contribution in terms of transforming the space, because you left a legacy as well in the ministry.
But I was supported because, when I got to the ministry, having started agriculture, I had been to school with either most of those people or they went there after I left. So I knew them and I knew the syllabus. So when I got there, I told them, you know what? Uganda is an agriculture country. We should be the leading ministry. And if we work together, I'll make you the leading ministry. So they were like, what can we do? I'm like, I'm going to send everybody back to school. Whoever wants to go back to school, this is your time.
Yeah.
Then when you come back, we are going to plan and do everything according to plan. Whatever little job you have to do, do it very well. Whatever little money government gives you, I'll make sure it gets to you. Whether you're a messenger, a driver, whatever. Actually, during my time, you know, looking back, I'm like, how did I manage to do that? My ministry, headquarters, were being paid cash. We would get the big check, go to the bank, yes, but we're not getting a lot of money. The minister herself was getting 100,000. So I'm like, really going to the bank in order to withdraw 100,000. If I'm getting 100,000, how much is the driver getting? And during those days, there were no thieves because nobody came to me complaining that they had not got their cash. Yeah. So when we started getting bigger and when we started getting people coming back from school, because most people went back to do their masters, doctorate. And I remember after 2-3 years, Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry was merged with livestock and veterinary. Wow. And when they came, I told them, I remember I told the veterinarians, you know the mistake? There's a mistake in nomenclature. When you get your first degree and you are called a doctor, you think you are a doctor of philosophy. Here, we have been sending everybody back to school. So now that you are here, you have got to do what we do. So I'm sending everybody back to school. Wow. Many of them, of course, were very excited, especially the young ones. But the older ones were like, how can she? What does she think she is? Oh, the young ones are the ones who told me what they were saying. I told these people the forms are here. I mean, we had so many scholarships. We had sent people to Australia, the United States, Tanzania, back to Makerere. So that created a lot of morale. The people were happy. Because I was telling you about the agriculture competitions. When we would be giving out prizes, I remember one time the prizes were given out at Kawanda. Those officers did not sleep. They had to organize presents for about 120 people in the night. Farmers. Farmers in the night. So that when I stand there and I read, Monica Moding is the best farmer in rice. They bring the right present at the right time and in the shortest time. Wow. So that the morale made the ministry really shine. Shine so much so that I remember 1989, around 1989, there was so much production that everybody was honestly and genuinely complaining because there was no market, even if there was a lot of production. But I remember one time accompanying the president, I think, to IGAD meeting, and he stood up and said, in Uganda, we have a problem, but it's a good problem. I enjoy swimming in it. We have got so much food, we don't know what to do with it. If any of you is looking to buy food, don't go, look no further. Come to Uganda. And we, of course, everybody clapped. And because that is a good story to tell. Absolutely. You want to be a leader? Absolutely. That's how to lead. Absolutely. You cannot be a leader and then turn around and say, Monica, empire already coming now.
Okay, so that interesting journey of yours in politics and in that epitome of your life, I know there are some lessons that you can share before we move to FAO, because that's another very important journey of your life and now where you are, which we want to pick lessons here and there. But I'd like to just call for a short break, and when we return, Honorable Victoria is going to be sharing with us, you know, her lessons that she has picked, that someone would be looking out for and saying, what can I pick from that senior leader when we return. Welcome back from that short break. We are here chatting with Honourable Victoria Sekitoleko, a pioneer woman leader in Uganda's politics and in leadership, a former minister of government in Uganda here, and of course a member who has worked in FAO and right now is supporting farmers across the country. And her journey is very interesting and important for us who aspire to walk in that same journey. Of course, someone now is asking, what can I pick from her political life at this point? Because we are going to move to the other life that she has lived as an expert in agriculture, working with FAO, but also working with farmers right now in the country. So, Honorable, that question is still on my mind. What did, your experience in the political leadership and, those places that you sat in, there could be somebody who wants to be a minister also in her life, a politician. And the Ugandan people are saying, wete go tia, how do you do that? What one or two lessons for them?
Before we become ministers, I think the first thing to do is to prepare oneself. You know, I normally tell people, whatever you are doing, just do your best.
Do your best.
Be a nice person. Because there are people who are very hardworking, very organized, but when they open their mouth, their language is so vulgar.
Foul.
That all that the people remember are those vulgar sayings. There are people who work and they are very hardworking, but they are so quarrelsome that everybody at their workplace, all they remember about them is how quarrelsome they are. You know, we used to joke in one of my other jobs that she has got a degree in quarreling.
PhD.
PhD in quarreling. So if you go and major in those useless areas, chances of becoming a minister are very, very few.
Okay.
What is interesting in Uganda is that the Ugandans themselves are not angels, but they would like somebody akin to an angel to lead them, because otherwise how do you become a leader? That is one. Two, I remember when I was deputy minister and minister, because for us, our government, the way we did our work was different. We used to have meetings with the president, which were not cabinet, but just meet and discuss the country. Yeah. I remember one time the president was talking about the future, and he advised us against something called arrivalism. Because I'm now minister, Chiwede, I'm here to stay.
Arrived. I have arrived.
I think that sort of woke me up. But as I told you, whenever I'm doing this, I'm already planning for what next. I would like to advise everybody to prepare, but to also know when to leave.
Okay. That's a very important point.
For me, I think the reason a number of Ugandans still like me is because I left when I did. Even if at that time, many of them were so angry, how can you leave?
At that point.
But because I left at that time, they only remember the good one. They had just voted with 85%, and then she left, and so on and so forth. Don't overstay your welcome. And whenever you are there, try to mentor and train other people to bring you up. I told you about sending everybody back to university.
Okay.
I, at that time, would tell these people that today I'm the minister, but maybe 10 years from now, I'll be retired. Yeah, I'll be retired and you'll be the minister. And I want to have a good Minister of Agriculture. So, especially those things which are not personal, be generous. Because like I was telling you about the scholarships. It is not like when I got the scholarships from the United States, I said that's enough.
To my family, relatives and all that.
And I was not even satisfied that I had those. On top of those, I kept looking everywhere. I went to Netherlands, I went to Australia, and everywhere I got scholarships. But just one comment about Australian scholarships. There's a woman in Uganda called Naomi Muhanguzi. She used to work with the Minister of Agriculture, and at that time she was in charge of training. And I gave instruction that whenever there is a group of people being trained, half should be women and the other half should be men.
Wow.
Unfortunately, there were not so many women in the ministry. So she asked me, what do we do? I'm like, what is the law about these people who have just joined, the young ones? He said, I have been looking, but there is no reason why we cannot train them. Hiring them is public service job, but on-job training is means of agriculture. I'm like, Chiwede, send everybody who has been recruited, because they've recruited them. So there was this scholarship of 8. She sent 7 women, 1 man.
You were being selfish.
I didn't know. It was not until one of the women came back and came to tell me that when they got there, they asked them, "Are there no men?" I said, "No, that means there's a woman."
Uganda. Wow.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. So, but you ask what to do. Know what side your bread is buttered and also reciprocate. Because for me, I was a woman and I was pushing for women. So I had to arm the women, especially for that time when I'm not there. Because after I left, those women had their PhDs and their masters. They never looked back. In fact, I love it when I'm traveling and they tell me, "You have forgotten me, but I'm so and so." I'm like, "Oh, give me a hug." So if you want good things for yourself, whenever you have an opportunity to do something good for somebody,
do it and
leave the rest to God. You know, there's a popular saying now, for me, that's how I work. And God himself says, "Okay, thank you, now move here."
Of course, you have left some legacy, I can call it legacy, and also mentored many people, both men and women, in that course of your life. And now we want to trace a little bit of how you now decide to leave. Of course, that decision was not welcome to many people. At that time, you were at the epitome of your life. Very popular minister, impactful to say as well. And now you just decide to go like that, which is a very difficult thing to do. In Uganda now, it's very difficult for people just to let go power like that, especially politicians, I think.
In fact, most people didn't believe it until I said it myself. So much so that, because I left beginning of 95, but end of 94, there was a reshuffle. Now, I was in communication with the president because I was planning my exit. So the president specifically told the prime minister that before we do this reshuffle, call her wherever she is, find her and find out if she's available. He didn't. I was in Canada, I remember. So I come back and I call him because that's the courtesy thing to do. He said, "Oh, you are back. Congratulations upon retaining your job." And because the reshuffle had taken place in my absence. And I said, "I wish you had called me before." Said, "What do you mean?" Said, "Okay, I'll come and tell you." So when I finished, he called me back to say, "What were you talking about?" No, because I had not yet talked to the president. So I told him, "I'll come and we talk." But nobody expected it and nobody believed it until I went on television and said, "This is it, goodbye."
Just like that. I'm sure perhaps there were reasons, and maybe I don't have the mandate to ask you those reasons now. Maybe you are putting it in your book that you're writing. It is beyond our interview here. But what I'm
but I'll just share this little with you. I told you about the culture competitions where I didn't have a budget. After the 1994 competitions, where I can't believe this. You know, I did not know that the Americans had so much money for my sector. I think they took 15 farmers to the United States. And you stay there for 6 weeks. You arrive, and for each week, this Ugandan is given $1,000.
Wow.
And they tell you, you can stay in a hotel, or a house, or you can stay in a home with the farmer. The choice is yours. These people just couldn't believe it. Then, small problem, the people who were traveling to Denmark were funded by EU. But the EU delegate was Danish. And they said, if these people are going to Denmark, why are they being funded by EU? They'll go to the Danish embassy, they'll give you the money. 20 went off to Denmark.
Wow.
Then went to UK. Then, you know, at that time, here you are sending half the ministry to study. Here you are sending half the farmers, bringing farmers to a big functions.
Public platform.
Of course, I would be telling you lies if I said my cabinet colleagues were there clapping.
They cannot, certainly.
The clashing.
And that was not within the budget.
At all. The clashing started. The complaints. It went all the way to cabinet.
Imagine.
And they asked the president why he gives me money on the side.
All the time.
After the budget has been agreed. Fortunately, at that time, Mona Wachionga was the Minister for Finance. And Mr. Museveni said, I don't even know where you cut the budget. I don't even have a checkbook. Let us ask Chionga. Chionga puts up his hand and is like, we did not give her even 1 shilling. I will never forget it, because that time, after the complaints, the president of Uganda has his shortcomings, but his strengths are also there. The one thing he can do is squeeze people until they vomit everything. That time he let the cabinet speak. This is not fair. This is not this. Then finally he comes to Chionga, and Chionga says he didn't give me any more money. They just don't know how I get all this money. Then the president looks at me and says, nothing to add. Next comment.
Let's move on. Okay.
So know when to leave.
Know when to leave. For you, you left at a time when you were needed mostly. And of course, it was a difficult decision for people to accept. But then we recognize that the battles had started. Being the woman that you are, impacting and all that, of course, there are those who will not be happy with a woman making such tremendous impact. Now, you decide to move on. Was the job of FAO already waiting for you, or you just decided to go and then said, okay, God will take care of the future?
No. For me, I work with my God. I don't like open the door and say, God help me. Like I told you, when the reshuffle for 1994 took place, I already was talking to the president, because I had indicated to him that I may not be available in 1994. So the process of being recruited into FAO took like 6 months.
Oh, yes.
But this is one other thing women should learn to do. Certain cards should always be played right next to your chest. Don't go telling this one and telling the other one, oh, you see, I may not. Who cares? This is your life. And if it is your secret and you can't keep it, don't expect anybody else to keep it. So I didn't tell anybody except my husband. So when I got my appointment letter in my hand, that day I got my appointment letter, the FAO's rep released the information. Wow. So it came out in Daily Monitor. And most people, because Daily Monitor has always had its issues here and there, most people are like, those are just rumors. We go to, no. But that was the day before I had told cabinet that I was leaving.
Wow.
When I went to cabinet to say I'm leaving, everybody just went.
How is it even possible, you know?
So the president said, so is this your last cabinet meeting? I'm like, no, I'll attend next week. If you get too busy, we shall understand, Madam. He can joke sometimes. Yeah. So I left, and I'm not going to give you the details there. I'll just tell you the challenges. So I got to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe was beautiful. It was lovely. Oh my God, was I happy to with the change. But then, because I was in Zimbabwe for 9 years, about 7 years into the job, I changed, because the deputy, when you are FAO's rep, the deputy is normally a national. So my deputy got another job and left, so I got a new deputy. It was really very hardworking, a small woman with her masters. And I liked her. But then everybody told me she's from intelligence of Zimbabwe, that they brought her to see what I'm doing. In the UN, we don't have confidential files. And she's the deputy. She does all the work. Honestly, until today, I have failed to see what people are complaining about. So what did I do? When the rumors became very strong, I called her into my office and said, you know what? You are far too intelligent to just be a deputy. You and I are going to work to get you an international job. And she said, Kari, what do you want me to do? Then the usual thing. Let you do whatever you do so well, so that when I recommend you to go anywhere, your actions will speak for themselves. Yes. So we worked. 2 years later, she actually got a job in Swaziland. And just to complete that story, 5 years back, she wrote to me to say, Madam, I'm now FAO's rep. And I'm like, oh, wow, am I happy?
That's great mentoring.
So back to, she's a spy, she's this, she's the other. Don't fall for such. Think for yourself. Because here I was. What I wanted is to get her out of my hair. What she wanted was to get an international job. Both of us were happy and we are friends until now.
Ignoring the little things and focusing on the bigger picture.
So whenever, don't talk about the big picture. Like I said, she was so hardworking. She was so quick. Whenever people come to tell you about your workers, take a good look. Because some people want you to fail. So if they find that you have got Monica, who is always running there, they want to find a way of placing a wedge between the two of you. So if you are quick to decide, how can Monica do this, and I had this, and I had the other, nobody told you that you are working with angels. This is a normal person who is going to make mistakes just like you are going to make mistakes. So whenever you are in a situation where you think it is a dilemma, it is getting complicated, look at alternatives. Don't decide too fast. Because like I've told you, it took me 2 years to settle her into that job. But I didn't lose anything, and I'm happy until now, and I can tell the story. Now, can you believe if I had fired her and maybe things, repercussions were not good, I wouldn't be telling the story now. Exactly.
It would be a whole mess.
So, the United Nations. The beauty of working for the United Nations is that you get to see the world as it is. And you start understanding why certain things happen and why certain things don't happen. Like one of the things which a number of Ugandans are yet to learn is that the United Nations is not a world government. The United Nations depends and respects the national law. The national law. And if, let's say, you are appointed, you are the UNDP resident in Uganda, everything, your security, your whatever,
will depend on the national
exactly
law.
You are not allowed to look down upon our culture and traditions if you don't like them. Like when I was in Zimbabwe, they eat those caterpillars. Yeah, and I would go.
That's what
I would go out
for public functions.
Exactly, with the Minister of Agriculture. And like in Uganda, they serve coffee. There they serve those caterpillars. So they would bring him, they would bring him a bowl with those caterpillars and a pot of water, and he would go, not knowing that I don't like them. But I would just look at him and say, I'll pass.
It's like our Ansenene here, the way we treasure it, and some other people would come in and be like, what is this?
Exactly. So when you are working with the UN, you are not the government. So sometimes when somebody says, oh, you see, Uganda will be reported to the UN, or the UN said this, most of the statistics, for example, if we look at FAO gives out statistics of how much coffee we produce, bananas. Most of those statistics actually come from here. So we do not have to, how can I say this? Some people think they are more authentic because they have come from FAO. But you gave, because a child is a child. If it is a Ugandan child, whether she's in UK or wherever, she's a Ugandan. So that is one thing. When you work with the UN, you understand the UN. But two, you also have the privilege of accessing information from other countries. You also know what is available, because like a lot of information is freely available from the United Nations, but quite often Uganda will not ask. That is one. Two, when and if you have got a contagious disease, you are supposed to report, and there is money in the United Nations to assist you with that. But sometimes some countries don't know. So when and if you have people, like Uganda is lucky to have so many people who have worked with the UN, we know how to relate. So one of the things I learned is how to relate with the UN, specifically with FAO. Then another thing which I learned is that most of the people who work in the UN, first of all, the United Nations will hire people according to the membership of the country. Some countries can opt out. Until 1994, when South Africa became independent, they were not members of the UN. So part of what I did when I went to Zimbabwe is actually go to South Africa to explain to them what FAO is and to get them to join. So and I'll just tell you about both South Africa and China in the same breath. When I went to South Africa, to explain to them why they should join the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. I remember they gave me one day. And that one day, I was supposed to address 4 meetings and then go and tour 2 farms one day. So I looked at the program. I told the Ministry of Agriculture person who was coordinating that this looks very brief, but I'll try my best. So first meeting, I get into this hall at about 10 o'clock. There were about 200 white males.
Persons.
Only men.
No woman anywhere.
No woman anywhere. I was supposed to be with them for 1 hour. And I told them, I don't think 1 hour is enough, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend 30 minutes explaining what FAO is, and then pointing out where you are likely to need more information. This one. So 30 minutes later, I was done. And they started asking questions. I started explaining. And 30 minutes later, I think we're on the second question. There were about 10 more questions. So they talk, come back and say, most of the program has been cancelled. We have to finish this. Because when I was telling them, for example, that here in South Africa, you are quite advanced in some areas, and most of these you can share. How? The FAO would hire your expertise, and you go out there and be consultants.
Yes.
And at that time,
countries.
South Africa was anxious to be accepted, to go out into Africa, as they call it. So, they're like, we didn't know that. And of course, I told them when we have elections, for example, when we're electing the Director General, South Africa has a vote, which you have never used because you are not members.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. So when I was in China, I told the Chinese that one thing I know for sure is that there is so much misinformation and ignorance about China.
Africa.
About China.
Okay.
So because when I was in China, I was FAO's rep, China. And I used to love introducing myself when we would go for meetings in Thailand, Germany, and whatever. And I'm like, my name is Victoria Sekitoleko, China. So, so I told the Chinese that there's so much misinformation. That is one. 2, now and then you try to rebuttal whatever has been said, but maybe if you use other channels like my office, it would make your life much easier. So I was actually given a blank check. Said, whenever you hear anything, just ask and we shall tell you. And most of what I needed was given to me and some more. In China, there are certain things which we think are sacred. No. For example, when you arrive in China, because normally more than one person is arriving at more or less the same time, they take you through a program for you to know what China is. So one time we had a meeting at which somebody from the Communist Party was to come and talk to us about communism. That is when I got to learn that in China, you don't become a communist. You grow up a communist. So much so that kindergarten, 2 years, your child should have decided if she wants to be a communist.
Or a capitalist.
Exactly. So there is a communist club in kindergarten.
Imagine.
Exactly. In primary, in secondary. Now, after you finish your senior 6, they take you to do mchaka. That is compulsory. Everybody goes to the army for 1 year. And while you are there, you decide, one, do you want to join the army? And if so, what part of the army? Because for them, they have, let's say, a school of medicine for the army. So you want to be a doctor in the army, you got that school.
Okay.
And then there's this school. I found it so interesting. It is for the eyes of people who will work in the army. Then, but if you don't want that, you are free to go to. That is why you sometimes you hear universities which are called normal, but they have got agriculture universities, technology. For them, their universities are all specific. Yeah. But
technical based.
Exactly. But then there are those which they call normal, where you can go and do whatever you want.
Okay.
But there are those. For example, there's a university in Shandong. It is a technical university, like Chambogo used to be. They teach. It is technology based, but they don't do masters. You do the theory and the hands-on, 50-50%. So much so that all the buildings in that university are built by the university. The roads in that sub-county are all done by the university. The food which is eaten is grown by the university. So it is really hands-on.
Wow.
That is, so when
no wonder they are building roads all over the world, especially in Africa here.
When I tell you that when you join the UN, really your eyes open and you see what the world is doing.
All about.
Yeah, it's all about. So when, for example, these days we are talking about agribusiness and we are talking about the value chain. In China, it is mandatory. There is no way you can decide to grow guavas in a place where, for example, there is a province near the Gobi Desert where the Yellow River passes, because for some reason it passes through that desert, and there the sand is yellow. That is why when the water is over that's why it is called the Yellow River, because of that yellowness. Now, that Gobi Desert is a desert because they don't get rain. But now and then they get rain, let's say once a year. And they predict it like on Monday, 25th of, Saturday, 25th of February, it will rain.
Yes.
So everybody who is going to do anything looks at that. That is where they grow the largest and the sweetest watermelon.
Wow.
Because they listen to this the weather forecast, they go into that sand and plant this seed. For that seed, just one shower, as long as it has germinated, it will grow. It is enough. But all that shows how they have started. And how, so if let's say you want to grow watermelon in the desert where it rains only once, you cannot afford to get it wrong, because even if that province is 1,000 kilometers from Shanghai, they actually send lorries to transport those watermelons 1,000 miles to Shanghai for the Shanghai people to eat. Now, everything is planned. Like, how many apples does China want? This much. Who is growing them? Province A, Province B, Province C. So it is your job as governor, this could be the equivalent of the RDC, to report that the apples are doing well, the harvest will be about this much, then those people whose job it is to distribute will also know that province A has produced so much, harvest is such and such a day, and packaging and delivery is this province and the other province.
Wow.
So for me, working in
the UN system,
really built me up. When I was in Ethiopia, because I also worked in Ethiopia for just under 3 years. When I was in Ethiopia, I was really excited to get there, because I wanted to understand, why is Ethiopia always starving? Most of the time, it's not the fault of the people. Quite often it is the leadership.
The planning.
The leadership. You know, when you have a country, because Ethiopia is huge, with so many different neighbors. So every neighbor, be it Kenya, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti, has some kind of impact onto Ethiopia. That is one. Two, they do not have, like the infrastructure, when I was there, had not yet been developed. So even just managing the country is not easy. Then three, their traditions are so embedded that you cannot quickly just change them. For example, they love eating their injera. And that injera comes from a very tiny seed, which is so difficult to grow. But because it is tiny, even the stem on which it grows is very, very fragile.
Delicate.
So if you get a strong wind before harvest, you get a rain, you get, then the
thing dies.
The thing
dies.
Yeah. And but be that as it may, one of the side things I learned from Ethiopia, they are very honest. They love each other. They are very hardworking, and they like their traditions
very much.
So much so that they eat injera for breakfast, lunch and supper. But these women, the Ethiopian women, have gone and sorted out how to prepare that injera, because nobody is going to be in the kitchen every day to cook injera. They cook like once a week. And the way they cook it, if you eat it hot, you actually fall sick.
Wow.
So you cannot, even if you are a husband, you cannot like hurry me up, oh hurry up, I'm very hungry. No. So these women make their injera once a week and they rest most of the time.
Oh, taking care of themselves.
Exactly.
Wow.
Then they, as I said, their traditions are very strong. Like when it is time to fast, because they are very Christian, Orthodox Christians. When it is time to fast, they really fast. They don't eat anything from animal origin. They just eat vegetables. So I'm like, now I know why there are no obese people in Ethiopia.
They are not there. Hardly will you find.
They are disciplined.
Yes.
And they know what they want and they go for it. Of course, part of what they want is raw meat.
Okay. Well, that one you find it also different in other cultures.
Yeah.
You may not use it in Uganda here.
Exactly.
Okay, so that journey of yours, there are many women, young people who aspire to work in the UN systems. And of course, it's a complex system for many people. But thank you for sharing that journey with us. You have learned a lot from there. Now you come back home to Uganda. At what point do you retire then to farming and supporting other?
Before I come back to Uganda, I want to talk about these young women. Like I said, whenever you are given an opportunity, do your best. But whenever you also have a chance to go back to school, just do it. Because I remember before I left to go to the UN, 1992, I actually took study leave for 3 months and went to France to learn French.
Imagine.
But once again, I didn't tell anybody other than my husband what I was going to do in France.
For
because
3 months.
it was not anybody's business. That is one. Two, when I joined the UN and I was abroad, you know, you look at these diplomats here, I wonder what they do with their free time, especially in a country where we have got so many public holidays. So for me, what I decided to do is go back to school. So that is where I did my diploma in counseling. I did my diploma in rural financing.
Many things.
Yes, whenever I have a chance, I go back to school. That is why I can still speak a bit of Chinese. Because as soon as I arrived in China, I went beyond ni hao ma.
Studying, learning every other time, reading.
So for these young people, it does no harm to learn, to be informed, because you never know where you'll end
up.
Yeah, you could have studied agriculture, but you are going to end up in diplomacy. Those are two different things, but because you went to school and did counseling, it is like, oh, okay, this falls into place. So that is one. Then two, when and if you want to work with the United Nations, honestly, in most cases, the United Nations headhunts. So it goes back to doing a good job. Now, I'll specifically address those who are already members of parliament, ministers, and all that. If your retirement package includes working for the UN, you had better be a woman of substance. But if you are going to swing, today you are wearing red, tomorrow you are wearing yellow, and then inside you are blue, and then outside you are this, they see.
They see all that.
They see.
Consistency.
Exactly. They see and know that you are not dependable, you are not trustworthy. So you cannot, it is most of these jobs are part of your journey. So you should be consistent, know what you want. Like I was telling you about the vulgar language and all that, the generosity, the simple things like you are lucky, you are working with a certain ministry, and you are like, you are invited to a meeting by the UN. The UN is always looking to hire. You get there. I remember there was this girl, she was a young girl from Makerere, and she came, did a fantastic job, first time. Everybody was impressed. They invited her again. For a reason I'll never understand, she arrives and I'm like, you know what? My suggestion to you is you understand these things. You are here last time. Offer to be the rapporteur. And then she said, but I see, I've got to go shopping. I'm like, I'll take you shopping in the evening. She refused.
Just like that.
Just like that. Because you have got to be where you'll be noticed. You know, when and if you are at this meeting, contribute. You don't just say anything. Sit there, listen, analyze. Even before you arrive for the meeting, study, prepare, so that you are on point. So always be prepared. That is the summary of what I'm saying. Yeah.
Wow. You have given us a lot. I know that Honorable Victoria is a trainer a lot in terms of women development, women leadership development in many spaces. I think we shall be getting more of her. Her life, of course, is full of things that we cannot exhaust in this 1 hour. But I'm itching to find out what she's doing right now, because she's all over the place before we go to the conclusion of our interview. So in terms of supporting farmers, because that's where we want to be, Uganda as a country, to be productive in terms of the agriculture sector, using all that expertise that you have acquired in life. I don't know, what are you doing right now with our farmers in the country, and what can we pick? Some people are aspiring to be farmers, like myself. I'm just beginning a few projects in farming, you know, and many other people perhaps. Yeah.
Like I said, whenever you are here, plan for tomorrow. So as I was about to retire, I started planning for my retirement. Because for me, I had made up my mind that come my retirement day, I was not going to do any consultancy, nothing for the UN. 17 years, I was done. I was coming back to Uganda.
Okay.
So I prepared to do two things really. Continue with agribusiness, because that is my passion, that is my study, that has been my training and everything. Then I was going to continue with the women.
Okay.
Given the fact that there are most of the women are in agribusiness anyway, that makes life very easy. So what do I do now? Right now, I'm the chairperson of the Uganda Agribusiness Alliance. And what do we do? What we do is we are mostly an advocacy organization where we study, let's say, the policies, we look at what is happening, we bring people together, get brains to actually see if this is what Uganda wants, and if it is not, we advise the government. So during our advocacy, we understand and then talk to government. We normally do this quietly. We don't go to the press and say, "Oh, Minister of going." No, that's not how we work.
You use the channels that you know.
Yeah, we practically use the synergy. Okay. Yeah. So now and then I'll call the minister and say, I've had this. Then we talk, finish, and we go on. Then when you look at after you have done, after I have done the advocacy, I teach public speaking. Okay. And the reason I teach public speaking is that there are so many people, especially the more educated, the less articulate. There are so many people who cannot speak in public. You know, I always wondered why during wedding functions, the parent, the father, would ask somebody else to speak on their behalf. Because they can't speak in public. You invite this person who is very articulate, and you say, you see, and so on, and you are like, so I teach people to speak in public, basically because I want people to share what they know. Okay. Many Ugandans are very knowledgeable, but they are not sharing. In fact, right now, I'm taking it a stage further. I'm requesting people to write something down. Everybody has a story. Yeah. You either tell it yourself or somebody
others will tell it for you.
In their way. Oh. Completely bungling it up.
Very important.
I'll never forget one time we were at a funeral of a certain professor. And even at the funeral, while he was still there, because he didn't write his book, people were already messing up his dates. I'm like, this is what happens when you don't say it yourself, you don't write it yourself. Yeah.
Very important. Very, very important. Thank you very much, Honorable Victoria, for sharing this journey of yours. I know somebody will be inspired here and there. Those who would like to be in politics, those who would like to join the UN, those who would like to be in the agricultural sector. There is a lot that we can do in this lifetime, and there is so much to be done. Now, I know you've shared a lot with us, but there are those things that we miss out in life. There is always something that you are unable to accomplish, even when you would have desired to do it. At this point in your life, I know there could be other things that you would have wished to do, going back, you know, the younger Victoria, 30 years, 40, you know. What are some of those things that you would have loved to do that you did not do, that somebody really needs to do and look out for?
There is a joke about me and my sisters, because my elder sister and the sister who comes after me went to Namagunga. I would have loved to go to Namagunga for at least 1 year.
Wow.
But
you did not go there.
No.
But you
spent all
performed.
my 6 years at Gayaza. So I called Namagunga the school that I nearly went to. But my father wanted Gayaza. So anyway, aside from that. You know, when you are working for the UN and you see all those good things, you wish they could happen in your country.
Okay.
But then when you go to the UN, you have to decide. You now belong to them. So you cannot, even if I had been Minister of Agriculture before, I could not just walk back and say, Minister, do this.
Do this.
No. So that one was a little bit inconvenient. Other than that, I honestly have enjoyed my life. I love the way God has always opened doors in it. Yes, ordered doors to be opened at the right time. Because I have never sat down to look for a job. I have never had a job which I don't like. Because for me, the different jobs were stepping stones.
Yes.
So I really am thankful that my life has been my life. And because of the sum total of my life, I'm now enjoying my retirement.
You are. And I could tell when I looked at you and I read your CV and your background, it says you are 72 years. But you don't look 72.
What do I look like? Looks can deceive.
Wow. How have you taken care of yourself? I mean, the self-care regime that you follow, I know many people are like, wow, she looks so good for 72.
For me, like I said, first of all, I'm a very prayerful woman. Then two, I'm a practical person. When it comes, for example, to what food I'm going to eat, I'm not the type of person who is going to be surprised in the dining room.
Wow.
What have you cooked? No. I know what I'm going to eat and I know how it is cooked. As a result, when, for example, you invite me to your house for dinner, don't be surprised if I eat very little. Because what I will do is I'll have my dinner at my place.
First.
Then I'll come for company. Because sometimes people, you know, I have a friend whose favorite meal is oxtail. Oxtail is good, but you cannot have it like every day. Then these days especially, people love chapati and people love rice. For me, my favorite food is indigenous. I love my kalo, I love the yams, I love the gonja, I love the matoke. But which actually worries me these days, most young people, like these ones you see here, love posho. Because we sent them to boarding schools where they were fed on posho for 6 years, and they grew up knowing that that is their staple food. So these days you can't ask, what is your staple food? Then the young ones, where you are paying 1.5 million per term, they are eating rice. So before you know, Uganda will become a major importer of rice because we have taught the future Minister of Agriculture that our staple food is rice. So back to me.
Imagine, but growing up in our time, rice was eaten only on Christmas Day. You know.
I know.
But now it's a daily meal.
And it was okay to eat your millet. Because what I can't understand, for example, is why a kilo of millet, which is ready for kalo, costs 5,000, 6,000, and rice goes for 4,000. That is what is changing our... So,
and yesterday the Japanese were talking about increasing production of rice in Uganda.
If they increase it, and we produce it and eat it, that's okay. What I don't support is for Uganda to be in a situation where they have got to import rice.
Unable to produce the rice to feed
but
its
then
people.
The Minister of Trade wants to eat rice, so we have to import rice.
Well, you have listened to Honourable Victoria Sekitoleko. Her story is very enriching and she looks too young. There's a lot ahead of her that she has not yet accomplished. And I think I want to wind up with that question. What more would you want to do? And also there's something that is on my mind in terms of being a senior citizen of this country. What is it that we are not doing well in terms of development? Or even the young people that you see, what has gone wrong with our generation in Uganda that may be endangering us as a country in terms of development and growth? And what would we do in that perspective? Personally, I think corruption is one of them.
First of all, you wanted to know what I'm doing.
2 things,
right
yes.
now, I'm writing my autobiography. It should be out soon.
Very soon.
You know, before you start, you think it's easy. But when you sit down, it is quite time consuming.
Yep.
But I want to tell everybody who wants to write, you don't have to write the perfect autobiography. When your grandchild and my grandchild go to the bookshop to buy books, however bad yours will be, for as long as he's your grandchild, she will buy yours.
Buy yours first.
Before she even looks at me. Okay. So please take courage and write. That is one. Two, you can write first edition, second edition, and third edition. But what is important is start. Now, about the young people and the corruption and what we are not doing right, in my view, if you have gone through what I've gone through and you know what is possible, because for me, I was Minister of Agriculture, I traveled the whole of this country, and I know what can be done. If everybody can do whatever little they can do in order to promote our agriculture, I don't see us going wrong. I'm really currently very excited because the current curriculum has told all schools in Uganda to prioritize agriculture. Specifically, senior secondary schools have been told the agriculture, those people who are teaching agriculture have to have half an acre of land on which they plant certain crops which will be told by the government. Then those other people teaching physics, chemistry and whatever have got to base it onto agriculture. I'm really happy that finally we are waking up. Okay. That is one. Two, some people are complaining that now agriculture in Uganda is becoming a business for the educated and those with money. I'm just celebrating.
Commercial farming.
Yes, I'm just celebrating. It is high time we got there. Because for how long are we going to stay subsistence, growing a whole acre and getting two sacks of brown nuts?
Of beans.
Of beans. So I'm really glad that the educated are joining agriculture.
Okay.
One thing I would like to urge every person who is going into agriculture, if God gave you children and they are not disabled, go with them. Yeah, because for today, you may be doing this as a side business. But looking at the future, the potential is in agriculture. Not only the potential for this child, but the potential for Uganda. Because most of our neighbors either don't have the water or the land. So inevitably, whatever they do, we shall end up having to feed them. So let us use this time to organize ourselves. I'm glad the government is saying we now follow the value chain approach.
Wow.
And I want to urge every young person, find out what you want. Let's say you want to deal with passion fruits. There is, I'm going to name names here. There's a young man in Masaka there called Bashir. Bashir teaches people how to produce passion fruits. Then here in Kampala, there's a young man called Dalaus. Dalaus buys these passion fruits, squeezes and makes the juice. But the first thing he did is get a room which is so sanitized that he will guarantee you that you can
Clean
have
juice.
this fresh juice.
Wow.
And you'll be okay.
Wow.
So if you are for while Bashir is getting money from growing the passion fruits and training people, this one is getting money from the fruit. But then somebody else is getting money from carefully transporting those fruits from Masaka to Kampala. And Dalaus works here, does his juice here because most of his consumers are here. Then there is somebody else who I know who is making money from branding for Dalaus. They make him uniforms, they make those caps. So squeeze yourself in there. You could be the uniform maker, you could be the one printing the caps, you could be the transporter, you could be the one making the boxes.
And specialize.
In making the boxes in which we put the passion fruits or the caps in order to take them to the function. So I wish to discourage everybody from working alone. If you want, for example, you want to go into guavas and nobody else is there, talk to them. And actually, that is what the Uganda Agribusiness Alliance does. You want to start something, you come and talk to us. We start putting out feelers. Sometimes, like when we started talking about avocado, we started with only 6 people meeting. As we talk now,
avocado is a society in Uganda producing that. Yes.
Exactly. So we can do the same for whatever crop you are thinking about. So if you are young, feel free to talk to me.
Wow, wow, wow. Honourable Victoria, I'm so glad that you came.
Thank you for
this
having me.
afternoon to be with us here. And the few things that you've shared, I know you've inspired somebody out there. And I know there are those who would like to reach out to you more because you have a lot to give and to contribute to the development of our society, especially in the agricultural sector. So anyone who would like to reach out, please feel free to inbox us in any way and we will contact Honourable Victoria on so many things. You are free to give us your feedback, but more importantly, to reach out to the guests that we bring you here, because the purpose is to connect you to people who've lived that journey and have impacted in different ways. And you can pick one or two things that will guide you in your life. That is the reason why we are here. So thank you so much for watching and being with us this time. We are going to end at this point until we bring you another inspirational guest. I know the story of Honourable Victoria is going to be shared at another level, because there are things we want to pick from her life in another aspect. But for today, let us end here and hope that you will join us another time next Saturday on the same place. We have been coming from Center for Constitutional Governance here, of course, here on Civic Space TV, and we hope to reach out to you again next Saturday. Thank you so much. Shalom.